The Global Fertilizer Challenge was initiated. I can't exactly say when, but I think 2-3 years ago. And Norway signed up to it with a clear message back to the US government that Africa needed to be part in this initiative, and we needed to have a focus on soil. And therefore, I would like to thank the minister and her team in the ministry and other committed people in the Norwegian government for supporting this process that is ongoing. Data, knowledge, critical information that can provide critical directional guidance to policymakers, the community of agricultural interest groups, and most importantly, the community of farmers are still not brought together and made use of in a systematic and efficient manner. Important data are scattered, often hidden from use in different institutions, being it government, being it research institutions, being it in the private sector. And that is the backdrop of today's event also. We need to do something about it. We need to make this very valuable and critical information available. And that's why we have taken this initiative also to bring a community together and partner and try to build a Pan-African soil information system. And the event is coming together thanks to a good piece of cooperation between many different institutions, not least key people from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Norway, as well as NORAD, ICRAF, and there's too many to be mentioned. The objective is then to create an open, shared, digital soil information system. And it took, I have to admit for myself, a bit of time to really unpack and understand what that means. And I have chosen to use my own words. I think that digital infrastructure, the foundation is there, and it is also mobile. It's not restricted to one particular place. With the digital world, you can move it, and they can be the basis and adapted to different needs, being it needs in Kenya, being it needs in Tanzania, and help us bringing all this valuable information together and help us improve also the performance of food production. Kenya and Tanzania are, at least according to our opinion, making progressive steps, clearly addressing the issue of soils. They want to do more. And we have this opportunity now to rally behind the good forces in these two countries and support them. And I think I will stop here and say that that's the objective of this conversation today. And I will now hand over to the moderator of today's session, Lee-Ann Bieniewicki from ICRAF. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Øystein. And you don't have to be a soil scientist to appreciate soil. So I think it's great to have non-soil scientists here. My name is Lee Bieniewicki. I am a soil scientist, and I lead the global research theme of soil and land health at CIFOR-ICRAF and co-founded the Coalition of Action for Soil Health. With that, I would like to invite our panelists up to the podium. So please, Minister Parmesh, Agri, I think Manyewu, you'll take the place of Esterine. And I think there were going to be some slides, Anthony. And the next slide and the next slide. And so I just want to welcome everyone here. I'm going to turn this off. I just want to welcome everyone here to our session. The next slide just talks about how central soil is for healthy food systems. And I think we're all here because we're committed to having a positive change and impact on the world and transforming our food systems, and particularly with the focus on data, access, data reliability. So I'm very pleased to start the first question to Anna Tvenerheim, Minister of International Development. And I would like you to set the scene for us. So following the global climate finance commitments, and I think we were all at COP in December, and this new commitment and financial commitments from the finance community, what role can donors play to protect and restore nature, including agricultural soils? Over to you. And to turn the mic on, press this button for 2 seconds.
I didn't have to press anything. Yay! It just responded. Thank you, Leanne, and thank you to all of you. Thank you to everyone that's organizing this. It's really inspiring to see that we are able to get together, public sector, countries, private sector, and researchers to put our heads together. Let me just start off by emphasizing why this is such an important issue to Norway and to me, and that is all about food sovereignty and food security, and putting Africa in a position where they are able to deliver on food sovereignty and food security in a sustainable way for their own population. And a key part of that is obviously soil health. The African Union has pointed to the fact that Africa's soils, which are among the oldest in the world, has become the poorest globally, and that estimates show that the continent loses mitigation. We're talking about carbon capture, increased productivity to spare or to reduce deforestation, etc. And in terms of climate adaptation, I mean, I'm sure it's obvious to everyone in this room how healthy soils will make it possible to keep humidity during dry periods, but also to contain flooding and simply be what is very fancy today called nature-based solutions. I really like the slogans here, because in my field of work, everyone talks about nature-based solutions, and that's fine, but nature-based solutions, it's really about biology, photosynthesis, and good agronomy. That's what it's about. And as a major donor, Norway is a major donor to the Green Climate Fund and other climate finance windows. And I must say that I really want to see more of that climate finance end up in the ag sector. It's essential. No, but, and it's very, thank you. But there is, the Paris Accord clearly says that it should be a 50-50 division between financing for mitigation and for adaptation. We are not nearly there in terms of adaptation finance yet. And when we talk about climate adaptation, it's very, very much about food security. And what's even worse is that only some 0.8% of the total climate finance ends up with the small-scale farmers. So that is really one thing that I'm trying to push through the Green Climate Fund and others. How can we address that? We need to access that money for the ag sector and for soil health. A couple of words about what Norway and donor countries can do. First of all, we can put food security on top of our agenda. Norway has done that. And we joined the Global Fertilizer Challenge at COP27, so a couple of years ago, and pledged $14 million to that challenge. And through this work, we want to promote public-private partnerships. And I think that's essential in order to address soil organic matters and fertility. And we need to cooperate closely with multilateral organizations such as FAO, national authorities, obviously, and research companies and research organizations and private business. And open soil data is absolutely essential in that endeavor. I believe that we need to establish those digital platforms where all relevant stakeholders can contribute and get access to vital data. We can optimize agricultural production through that way, and we can work a lot more effectively if we are able to have open and shared data. Norway is also the founder of what's called the Global Digital Public Goods Alliance, and we have seen in other fields how essential shared open data can be for progress in development, and that is exactly what we need to do in terms of soil health as well. And that is why Norway welcomes the partnership between C4ICRAF and Yara. It's really great to hear about the plans for that you have to cooperate with national institutions and other stakeholders that are vital in soil health management. And I'm also familiar with Yara's introduction of Yara's independent company called Varda, and the data platform Soil Hive and Field ID. And we are currently looking into how we can unleash synergies in that work to make sure that we get this data available. I think it would be a game changer for soil health in Africa. And sorry, I've spoken way too long, but that's in Norwegian. In Norway, we have a saying called "What the heart is full of, it's going to run over with." And soil health is an issue very close to my heart. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for making the link between climate and soil health, because we know soils can store 3 times more carbon than above ground vegetation. And so it's really, you're making the case to convince Green Climate Fund and other climate finance to invest in agriculture. So thank you so much. I also understand if you have to leave early, you can feel free at any time. And so thank you for setting the scene and talking about Kenya, talking about African soils. I'm very pleased to have our next panelist, the director from the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries, and Cooperatives here in Kenya, Mr. Gilbert Muthii. And I would love to hear about how the Kenyan government can really convene and engage and expand collaboration to really, across different stakeholders, to improve the soil degradation situation that we have and to improve the sustainability of soil management. So I give you 5 minutes. I think you have a mic here. Yeah? Great. Welcome.
Thank you for that question. Here in Kenya, as part of Africa, is that Africa is a home of 1.2 million people. And these face various challenges, including perennial hunger, armed conflicts, climate change, and environmental degradation, among others. Africa food demand has far much outstripped our food production, and the current population is projected to increase by 2 million by 2030, and 2.4 million by 2050. So it means that with the degraded soils and the climate change and a population growth rate of 2.37, definitely something has to be done. Alone as a government, Africa may experience a lot of challenges in terms of financing, in terms of mobilizing the resources, and for that matter, they need the private sector. So there is need for private-public partnership for us to move forward in terms of sorting out issues pertaining to soil. Number 2, when it comes to data, data is scattered all over. We have concerns pertaining to standard data, dealing with soils in terms of even as undertaking soil mapping, digital maps, and even as far as digital technology is concerned. In Kenya, we may be slightly ahead than other African countries, but there is need to bring everybody on board. But now, narrowing down to our country, we need to build a stronger stakeholder base as far as information management is concerned in this country. And we need to bring each and every person on board and build very strong linkages in terms of soliciting various data that are scattered all over. And then from there, we also need to think how we can move forward and have standard data in terms of making references and in terms of developing various or formulating various recommendations for our soils. The other thing about soils is when it comes to really providing solutions like fertilizers. Over a long time, we have been using inorganics, but it is important now to think about an integrated soil management, which is really the core of this particular summit. And so moving forward, we need to integrate both inorganic and organic solutions. And that means that we need also to think in terms of biostimulants. We need to think in terms of soil conditioners and anything else that will definitely improve the crop nutrients. This way, we are likely to build or to increase in terms of productivity, to improve our productivity per unit area. We are also likely to enable our soil regenerate. We are also going to enhance solutions to malnutrition, because definitely soil is the mother of everything. And once the mother is weak, even the rest definitely will be limited in terms of nutrient supply. So we need to feed the soil and feed it well, but sustainably. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I think that's tweetable. Soil is the mother. We need to keep her healthy. That was brilliant. And thank you so much for bringing in nutrition, right? Healthy soil, healthy people, healthy animals, healthy planet. And also leave no data and no one behind, right? Everyone needs to come to the table. Very excellent food for thought for the rest of the summit, actually. Thank you so much. And this is not Esterine, but Manyebo has graciously stepped in for Esterine Fontevag, so thank you so much, Manyebo, Head of Agriculture at Auda NAPAD. And I think everyone saw you on stage already today, giving a fantastic presentation on the declaration, the plan, and how we're going to action it. So if you'll allow me, I'd like to follow up. So this is the problem when you give a keynote. So I was dying to ask you about what the role of Auda NAPAD will be to support African countries, citizens, governments, to really implement this action plan that you presented, and what are the next steps post-summit? So over to you. I'll give you my mic.
Thank you very much, Lee. And obviously, I opened the can of worms. You know, but before I start, I would like to acknowledge the presence of Honorable Minister. We're very glad to have you with us. I know that you've been at the forefront of supporting the African agenda, particularly on soils. We really appreciate the support. I am going to speak on behalf of my director, who is not able to join us because of a meeting that's running over time. So some of the remarks I'll give, don't quote me. They are remarks, they're not mine. But I would, before I go into that, I would really like to just pick up from your question. With respect to ourselves as AUD and EPAD, but also the African Union Commission, post-summit, and the plans to support member states, our primary objective is really to ensure that the resolutions from the summit are taken forward, are domesticated by our member states. That's our primary role, is to support our member states in the commitments they make, in executing those, and ensuring that as much as possible they contribute to addressing the challenges that we face as a continent. So precisely after this summit, our real work starts. Our real work starts to really support our member states to take forward the resolutions from this summit, particularly in terms of coming up with their own national action plans. Essentially, today we were presenting a continental level action plan, which guides our member states going forward. But we expect each of our member states to be able to domesticate that, to refine it, to make it specific to their context, and we'll be on hand to support them to do that. So they will have their own processes at the national level with a whole range of partners to do that. But we are at hand to provide the guidelines, the tools, the systems that they require. This meeting, the coalition of partners, I should say, around soil information systems, it's a huge area that we really look forward to supporting member states to take forward. And we've been part of the coalition of partners that's coming together to really strengthen that work and really advance that work, because we believe it's going to be a huge part of how we move forward with respect to ensuring that the planning, the decision-making, the investments that happen at the national level are informed by robust information, and also this filters to farmers themselves, because of all the stakeholders, they have the greatest decisions to make. They have to make the right decisions, the right investments, and they need to be informed by solid, robust data. And we, at AUD and EPAD, this is going to be one of the major areas of investment and effort going forward in terms of supporting our member states. You have to stop me, because otherwise I won't stop. So,
I'll give you one more minute.
Yes. So so definitely there are a number of things that we have already lined up, and again with generous support from the Norwegian government supporting our programs in specifically for this agenda, and we really appreciate that, and it's going to sustain the momentum to start with, because we don't want after the summit for things to go cold. We want to sustain the momentum. We want to keep member states on board. We want them to know that we are at hand to support them with their plans as much as possible. We also want to help coordinate the broad field of stakeholders on the continent. You can see the interest from the private sector, from farmer organizations, from non-state actors. There's a wide field of stakeholders with a lot of interest in this subject matter, and for good reason. So we want to offer ourselves as a coordinating point for that action to really ensure that we deliver pointed support for our member states and the programs that they are putting together. Thank you very much, and I'll stop there.
So Dr. Muthee, you heard it straight from Manyewa Mutambo. Going to support Kenya all the way. And thank you for bringing in some criteria for this soil information system. What I heard from you is, let's make sure it's relevant to farmers. So I think that's really important. And when we talk about resolution, I'd like to encourage all the member states who signed up for the action plan to bring this forward at the United Nations General Assembly, and let's have a resolution on soil health bring it to the international stage. So thank you so much for bringing that up. And thank you. You may have to join panel 2 as well, Monyeo. You're not off the hook. Great. So thinking of partnerships and funding, I'm really pleased to invite Parmesh Shah from the World Bank. He's the global lead of data, digital agriculture, and innovation. Sounds like a very relevant panelist here. So thank you so much for joining us. So please, let's expand on what Monyeo was just encouraging us to do around partnerships. So what kinds of partnerships are needed to create this continental, regional, national soil health monitoring and soil information systems to inform investments and support decision-making on sustainable soil management? And remember, Monyeo was saying decision-making of the farmers, decision-making of the investors, decision-making of the government sitting on either side of you. Over to you.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate all the comments made are very rich and very great to be here among this whole panel focused on soil fertility. Very long overdue this event, and I think we look forward to gaining a lot of ideas to enable us to make future investments in this area in future. So we're already talking to a lot of people. What I would just like to say is that Africa is going through a digital revolution of its own kind, but that has not touched agriculture sufficiently. So to look at it, if you see, we did a report way back in 2020, and we found that there were 365 scalable AgTech startups in Africa. But the resources which they were getting to scale up were very limited. And at that stage, we, as a World Bank group, we decided to invest in the ecosystem of the young innovators in Africa who would work on it. And we are sitting in Nairobi. I think there are 29 innovators coming with very unique solutions, like Hello Tractor, which has digitized all the tractors and Uberized all the farmers who can access tractor services. Like Uzi Kiliomo, which is using soil sensors to get soil testing data in 10 minutes using sensors and making it reach dealers so that the fertilizer is available much faster. I can go on and on. But the investments required to really nurture an ecosystem for innovation has to be done very systematically. On the second side, I think Kenya has also taken a lead in terms of digitizing. All the farmers are now digitally registered, 7.5 million, very unique. I think it's the first country in Africa to have digitized all the farmers now. Not only that, Minister, you were also talking about the geotagging of farm plots, because you can't do soil advisories unless you geotag farm plots. So there's also geotagging of farm plots also happening in the same way. Then digitizing of all the farmer organizations, because I think they will be the ones who will deliver scalable solutions as opposed to going to each smallholder and working with each one of them. So I think investment, the foundational digital public infrastructure is a very big investment we need to make in order for the soil solutions to work. And I think we are now committing to invest this foundational digital infrastructure in 24 countries in Africa in the next 2-3 years. This will be a big push for us to invest in digital public infrastructure. Then comes the soil part. I think soil needs data, and everyone has talked about it. So I think creating that open data platform on soil fertility would be a next big investment of public good. We consider this should be a public good investment. But with private good, like all the platforms, digital soil platforms, which even Yara is doing and all, being made available so that they are in an open data available to everyone. For the solution providers to develop solutions, for governments to take decisions about what to do. Now, we have a challenge that a lot of fertilizer which gets used doesn't lead to productivity. We know that. In fact, in some cases, we find that there is toxicity of certain types of fertilizers leading to more environmental consequences. So in my mind, and in the mind of all the practitioners with whom we talk, precision fertilizer advisory for smallholders is the biggest developmental challenge we are facing for future. The large farmers are able to get data and are able to test their soils and able to source that. But small farmers find it very difficult to get an integrated solution which really is able to advise them on best possible solution. It could be a combination of some chemical fertilizers, some biologicals and all. So in a way, we also need a policy change to move from just fertilizer subsidies to soil fertility incentives. And this is something which our whole team is here and it's working with 14 governments on how we move from just fertilizer subsidies to soil fertility incentives. Because the money is being spent by African governments, but that money is not getting converted into productivity because we don't have the policy to really. So if we had a policy which would incentivize soil fertility, then we will get very different results as opposed to one which incentivizes only one solution. So this is another area. The second area is the whole development of precision soil fertility advisory for smallholders. We are now testing an AI chatbot in Ethiopia, where we feel that solutions exist. Ethiopia has digitized its soil data for a very long time and everything, but data is all lying scattered and doesn't get converted into products and services. So I think we are trying with 100,000 farmers an AI chatbot where a farmer puts their own location data and all the data in the backend gets analyzed and they get a solution specifically for their land. So I'm very optimistic about what can happen in Africa because I see solutions all the time. But I think with the auspices of your auspices in bringing it all together in terms of an action plan, we are ready to support whatever comes out of that action plan, and we will stand in shoulder in terms of investing in what comes out of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'll turn off your mic. So now we see how you've earned your title of innovation. You've just given us several ideas about how to make data more useful. And so really appreciate that. And I love this idea of course, everything being a public good, but not just digitizing soil, but also all the people, the whole ecosystem of partners. It's a really interesting idea around farmer organizations and who's doing what. So thank you so much. And speaking of people who represent many organizations, I'm very pleased to invite Dr. Agri Agunya, the Executive Director of FARA. I think everyone here has seen the FARA logo everywhere for this conference as well, so you can explain to everyone what FARA is. So please, we're so pleased to have you here, and thank you for being here. So could you bring us to some actions, right? So what are some highlights of the actions that the constituency you represent will take forward to make sure that relevant, not this scattered data, bringing this data together and making it relevant, soil information is more available and more accessible to the end users? Please, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks for the opportunity to be here. And Minister, thanks. It's an honor to be with you on this stage. I speak for a network or an ecosystem of institutions that call themselves knowledge institutions. They are the research organizations at continental, at sub-regional, and at country level. The extension organizations and the universities. So at continental level, we have a continental organization that's responsible for universities, FARA is responsible for research, and AFAS is responsible for extension. And then they have their structures at sub-regional and country level. So it's a big structure, big network. And when my colleague Manu was talking about domesticating the action plan and so on, it's not NEPA that directly does that. It does it through institutions that it has mandated to do that work. And that ecosystem of knowledge institutions is one of the networks of institutions. So what we have done, and we have not waited for yes, for the launch, we started developing guidelines for the countries to draw upon to inform their strategies as they develop their strategies. So there's a guideline on extension. The action plan says we'll reach 70% of farmers in 10 years. So there needs to be something that will help countries to reach there. And these guidelines are developed by the pool of experts from Africa and from outside Africa. We have a guideline on soil and water management. You'll be part of that next week. We have one on human capacity. We have one on scaling, or several guidelines that will help us to support the countries to reach there. On the issue of data and so on, we're talking about information systems. My background is in information systems, and I appreciate very much working at regional level. Of course, most of the information is collected at local level, national level. When I was working in Southern Africa, I worked across several countries, and I was digitizing maps. And you can see, if you move from one country to another, there are discontinuities. And that's an artifact of how the countries collected their data. We need to work at regional level and ultimately at continental level to have something that represents what actually is on the ground. My final point. If we are talking about an information systems, it's a combination of data, very important. It's a combination of the infrastructure and the software, and critically, the people. The people tend to get left behind when we think of the system, and the people who are at the front of collecting data, very important, but crucially, the people who use that information. We need to ensure that we don't leave them behind. Thank you very much.
So now we're finding this thread of leave no one behind, right? And thank you so much for reminding us of the urgency that FAR didn't wait for this launch, that you're already taking action and developing these guidelines. So a mentor of mine told me, be patient, but not too patient, right? So thank you so much. So I should be saying this to everyone, but probably only one person on the panel knows how to reply. So I say shikamo and welcome. Geoffrey Karenga is the CEO of SAGAT. He already knows that my first place I was based was in Tanzania, so I have my moyo in Tanzania. And I would like you to ground us now into the country, into a landscape, into the soil. We know that ecosystem degradation is a concern. It has already been cited here today that over 65% of soils in Africa are degraded. So now, the question and challenge to you, how do we solve this soil crisis on the continent? And what is the role, what do you see as the role of this data, access to data, soil information, to really improve soil health and increase agricultural productivity? And feel free to ground us into Tanzania soil, even the SAGAT.
Thank you. That's a long question, but I'll try. I'm coming from Tanzania. I work with an organization known as SACOT. SACOT stands for the Southern Agricultural Growth Corridor of Tanzania. But I have some news to you. Based on the work that we have been doing for the past 10 years, we've been given the mandate to go into other corridors of Tanzania. So very soon we'll be known as Agricultural Growth Corridors of Tanzania. And Honorable Minister, in that initiative, not only the ministry, but also the farmers of Tanzania are very proud of the partnerships that you have had with your country, Norway, together with the private sector. We've been in this journey of transformation, increasing productivity, fighting poverty, and also bringing knowledge and technology. What you have come to realize, because SACOT is a partnership between the government and the private sector, is that you need partnerships. And all my colleagues, including yourselves, you have mentioned all the things that needs to be put together in order to have the transformation and make sure that the African soils stop being degraded, but also become more productive. That will allow to increase food security in a sustainable way. The question is, how are we going to do that? What an African farmer and those people that are saving that farmer are missing is the knowledge that has been put together. Knowledge is scattered. And for the first time ever since agriculture started, we have reached a point whereby it's not only in Africa, but also globally, we can put together that knowledge and arrange it in such a way that it can be put into use in a way that it will be sustainably used, unlike what has been in the past. Give you an example. If we're using a bag of input like fertilizer to a farmer that the soils are acidic, for sure, if that soil is seriously acidic, that farmer will not realize up to 75% of the value of that fertilizer. Therefore, the issue of testing that soil is important, and maybe correct that soil using corrective measures like adding lime. Where will that lime come from? You need to develop the value chain, and probably the policies are not put together in a way that it will facilitate that lime to come to that farmer. Where will you quarry, and who will invest in that? Will it be a government? Will it be a private sector? Those are the things that needs to be translated on the ground. These are practical questions. Okay? Adding lime alone is not enough. That farmer needs to know that the soil should not be disturbed unnecessarily. Therefore, minimum tillage is critical. And in that way, you'll also increase organic matter content. And in Africa, almost it's criminal if an African soil in the tropics is not covered by crop residues, crop covers, and other things, because even the rain can damage that soil, not only the sun. So this knowledge, including minimum tillage and zero tillage, is counterintuitive. It has to be communicated time and time again, because over generations, farmers have been told that you have to plow the land and leave it open. You should have your seed bed visible, and the brown or reddish soil should be seen, and then you'll be a good farmer. But now you're telling the farmer, no, minimum disturbance, leave the crop residues, build the organic matter content, test the soil. And then we are talking about soil health. And here, I should be very happy to say that soil health translates into Swahili as afya ya udongo. Afya means health. And that means we are telling the farmer almost the same message that the health sector has been telling people, that you need to take care of your health. Now we are telling the farmer that they need to take care of the soil's health. And this message resonates very well, but we have not done a good job in making sure that this message is delivered. Let me conclude by sharing with you some success stories. We have just been concluding a partnership project that involved research organizations together with the government of Tanzania and also SACOT. And in 2 locations where farmers have started implementing soil health and those issues that we've been talking about right now, we have seen tripling of productivity, but also increasing organic matter content of the soil, and even the health of the soil is becoming better as the wealth of the farmer is also improving. Technology. It's very nice and easy to talk about technology and building of databases. But database needs to be maintained in a way that there will be continuity and commitment to make sure that it is not a static issue, but it has to be a living database. And this is why we're very keen to follow what is happening in Soil Hive and the support that we're seeing, the partnership. And I should say, when you look on the map right now of Africa and you see who has contributed most of the data, Tanzania is outstanding there. And I'm happy to be proud of that, and I will encourage other countries as well to do that. My last message is a message of hope. In our transformation agenda for agriculture, we have started surveying and titling farmers' land, registering all the farmers. We are targeting about 7 million. We have reached about 3 million. We still have some work to go, but the information that is coming out of that is amazing, because you can use that in championing finance, championing issues of marketing, and also policy change. It has never gotten better than what we have seen today. Thank you very much.
Do you remember what he said? Afya ya Rongo, huh? Excellent. Thank you for giving us another tweetable phrase here. I love it. And as someone who's dug a lot of auger holes in Tanzania, I think we should be proud, right, of the information and the data availability. And thanks for reminding us that it's not just about data. It's converting data to evidence, to knowledge, to wisdom, right? And so it's a train. So really, thank you. And I want to take this opportunity to thank all of the panelists of Panel 1 for setting the strategic framing and for giving us key points and characteristics and criteria for this soil information system. And so I'm going to ask Anthony in the back to put the barcode slide up. I think it's like slide 10. And we're going to ask you to scan the barcode. There's a little quiz. And this is where we can log in your questions. And I'll ask you to do that as we give a huge round of applause for our first panel and we transition to our second panel. Thank you so much. So I think we were given a lot of hard tasks with that first panel, and it's quite exciting. So this second panel is really going to be a rapid fire, and it's going to be about solutions and country action. And great, thank you so much. Dr. Golicha was wondering, where am I supposed to be? Thank you so much. And we should have 8. Who am I missing? Oh, yes. Let's scooch this way because Manye was refusing to join my panel again. Come up here, Manye. Now you can be your own voice. Great, thank you so much. So please, we'll be looking at your questions and following up. And there was also a quiz. So one of the questions was about what do you think of when you think of soil health? Because I think we got a wide range of examples and perspectives from the first panel. So I'm really pleased. It's going to be a rapid fire. So if I start walking towards you, that means time is up. And I hope you know, Dr. Golicha, you'll be first. Because we ended the last panel in what country? Tanzania. And now we're back in Kenya. So Dr. Golicha is from KALRO, and everyone here knows what that is, Kenya Agricultural Livestock Research Organization. And so I really want you to highlight, kind of bridge these two panels and talk about the importance of leveraging partnerships. KALRO has been very busy lately bringing together stakeholders from across the sectors and across countries, actually, to really build these big data platforms. And we heard the permanent secretary on the main stage talk about the 6 or 7 million Kenyan farmers that have been registered. So talk about leveraging these partnerships to make sure these data don't just sit in a database that no one ever uses. Please, the microphone.
Thank you, Leah. As been said, I work for KALRO, Kenya Agricultural Livestock Research Organization. This is a national research organization with 53 research centers across the country, spatially distributed, and 17 research institutes is strategically located to serve various farmers across the country. In terms of partnership, KALRO has signed MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with over 200 partners. And these partners involve national and international partners. And they as well consist of both public sectors and private sectors. So that means that as KALRO, partnership is at our heart. But then, partnership is not enough. But the benefit that they are in is what brings a difference to farmers. Looking at the field of soil fertility and soil health, there are a number of players. There are soil laboratories, there are farmers, there are private and public and international research organizations. You know, there are other research institutions like universities. All these are partners advancing the soil health agenda. But we really need to take this partnership further than the existing scenario, in the sense that we need to have a responsive data sharing policy, you know, a data sharing policy, specifically a data sharing policy on soil health. We need to have a coordination in soil health agenda. For example, a government body coordinating different players in soil health agenda within Africa, customized to different countries. You see, a policy that defines partnership and what that partnerships can bring to farmers. That partnerships increase money in the pocket of farmers. That's the kind of partnership that we are willing to have. In partnership, policy is key. Having a trust and share willingness to share data is key. And that leads to having, you know, a responsive soil information system that comes from different partners that end up helping the farmers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm getting a new idea. Data sharing policy on soil health. I love it. And as a leading organization, I would like everyone to give you a bigger round of applause for coordinating all of us in Kenya to build such a system. So thank you to KALRO. Excellent. So I'm very happy to bring our next panelist on, because we're talking a lot about data. And I think you have some experience in this, organizing data. So I would like you to talk about Dr. Vaughan, who leads this spatial lab at C4ICRAF, and you can explain what spatial is. So could you please highlight opportunities to bring evidence to bear on investments to scale healthy soil and address these global and local challenges? And my question also is, do we have data gaps? Or do we have gaps in access and how scientists like yourself and like myself are communicating these data? So feel free to tackle any of those aspects.
Yeah, thanks so much. So to the question on data gaps, the answer is yes and yes. So there are data gaps, and there are big gaps in terms of how we use data and how we bring data out to to people that need to have access to these data. So one really exciting thing in terms of data gaps on the continent, specifically in Africa, has been new technologies that allow us to assess soil health, multiple aspects of soil health very rapidly and very cheaply. And these are technologies that have actually been piloted on the continent itself and are now being scaled in ways that allows us to do analysis of soil in a much more cost-effective way. And that's really critical, because if you want to tackle these data gaps across the continent, especially with smallholders, using conventional ways of analyzing soil is out of reach of most of these smallholder farmers in terms of just the price point in terms of doing that. Then the other side of it is how we make this information available. So we can build all kinds of beautiful soil information systems, but if we don't create mechanisms for people to use these systems, to access the data, and also to get evidence out of that, so not just the raw data itself, but things that are interpreted in ways that make sense to people, recommendations that make sense, that are context specific, we're not going to make progress. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to happen in that space. There's a lot happening. We heard about sort of startups in the previous panel, and I think we have a large number of startups here in Nairobi, for example, and across the continent. So these are areas that when we open up data, I think this will allow people that are starting up their own small startups and creating their own solutions to tap into this and develop customized solutions that can be applied by farmers in various types of contexts. Thanks.
So a follow-up, because you're so precise. So could you maybe explain what spatial stands for and what the role of facilitating that engagement with stakeholders with the evidence to interrogate and visualize it? How important is that after these data are used?
Yeah, I'm very Norwegian, so I speak like short sentences. So spatial stands for Spatial Data Science and Applied Learning Lab, and is a lab at CIFOR-ICRAF. Basically, what we do is we take data and we use a lot of AI machine learning, remote sensing, and create maps of soil properties, land degradation, biodiversity, all kinds of different indicators. And then we create tools that allow people to access this information. And that's kind of where the applied learning side of it sits. Because we realized a number of years ago that we could create all these nice platforms, right? But very often you'll find that people don't know how to use them or how to find them, or maybe they don't make sense to them in their specific context. So we've been kind of using these co-design principles. So we're co-developing everything we do, every platform we develop, we co-develop together with stakeholders, so that we get their inputs from the beginning as we conceptualize what this is going to do. So for example, a soil information system in Tanzania, for a particular part of Tanzania, you bring the stakeholders into the room and you get their inputs in terms of what types of decisions are they making on the ground, what types of problems are they facing, and then you can tailor the development of it to their context.
Great, thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause. So speaking of not developing useless tools, I would like to invite my next panelist is Simone Sala, the Director of Global Soil and Ecosystem Solutions. And I would like to invite you to talk about the role of private sector, because you're at Varda, to build these soil information systems and to make sure they have the qualities that Tor was referring to. They're co-developed, they're useful, they're not one of these apps sitting that no one's using. So please.
Yeah. Thanks. And we're a little bit peculiar because we are a startup from Yara, but we are transitioning into a non-profit as we've been developing digital public goods because we think it's the only way to really scale up and make a difference out there in the world. But I think there are many ways in which the private sector can contribute. I just list 3 of those. One, which is maybe less obvious, is the fact that private sector is a consumer of soil data. And to map how the private sector consumes that data is very important because it allows us to build soil information systems that are multi-purpose, that are not only fit for one specific purpose that was the purpose designed as part of a project, but goes beyond. And so you have the agribusiness that's able to take the data to inform a recommendation to an advisory service provider or to provide an advisory themselves. You have a financial institution that's able to better assess the quality and the value of a land. You have private investors that's spotting gaps and so forth. That's extremely important. So making those transparent, first point. Second point, which is the mirror of this, private sector is also a consumer of data. A producer of data, which means that they do, and the large quantity of soil data is generated out of private labs, research institutes, private ones and public ones, downstream companies such as food companies, traders, agribusinesses. They do generate directly or indirectly a lot of data, but typically do not share that data. If they could make this available, then we could make gigantic steps in accelerating how we do understand and comprehend the dynamics between soil and agroecosystems. And the third point, which is linked to this, is private sector to come up with ways, innovative ways, to tackle reasons why private and public organizations do not share the data. And clearly, some are technical, so coming up with technologies to make it easier to share data, but also coming up and testing ways in which those organizations find it meaningful and useful, and it's worth for them to share data. So testing, for example, trading systems, data exchange systems, and so forth, which is what we've been doing, because we think, again, it's not just about the will to share data, but there are a lot of reasons why organizations do not share. And if we make it easier and worth it, then that's really important. And again, you need innovation for that. You need new techniques, new technologies. The world is evolving rapidly, and we need to be able to tap into those different technologies, private and public sectors alike, to make it happen.
Yes, I really appreciate that. It kind of tackling the root causes of why people don't share data or haven't in the past. And part of that is building on what Parmesh said at the first panel about engaging and leveraging on new technologies and innovation. So really looking forward to exploring that together. I'm very happy to bring in our donor perspective here. So Ingvild Langhus, she's the senior advisor in the Department for Climate and Environment in the section of food. Something like that. It's probably a wrong translation from Norwegian at NORAD. And I want you to expand on really the role of donors, or how donors can mobilize efforts to promote this increased access to open, and a new word I'm bringing in, interoperable soil health data access for Africa. Over to you, Ingvild.
Thank you very much. I'm particularly glad for the interoperable addition here, because that's something that we have been pushing a bit from our side as well. And that it means that the data that speaks together and options that can speak together, so that you can use it across. I have to say, I'm not a tech nerd myself, but I've learned a lot about APIs as having to be in the foundation for that to be interoperable. So I'm just looking to Simone on some of that. The perspective from the donors, yes, I think we have a major role to play in pushing the agenda for open data, and also be open on the data ourselves. In the terms of what we are funding and being pushing on the open data agenda, and from the Norwegian side, yes, we can do more of that as well. As our minister was saying, we're part of the Public Digital Global Public Goods Alliance, and that also means a lot in terms of finding solutions that can be reused for different purposes. Having these open data, you can just kind of imagine in a world where we would be supporting several projects that would collect data on their own. So you would have a database in different places. So you would be funding from Norwegian side or from another donor side, several data gathering exercises, and they wouldn't be shared. So it's a waste of time, and it's a waste of resources, and loss of opportunities in terms of using that data across. And now we're talking in particular about soil health data. And sharing that across, and we have visited the eCRAF campus and seen how you're using this in kind of training the digital tools as well, and how when you share data, you get a lot back. And I think that goes for a lot of things in life. If you share information, you actually get a lot of information back. So it's a win-win situation. And from a Norwegian perspective, I think we want to be part of that tech revolution in agriculture in particular, in Africa, that our colleague from the World Bank was talking to, in terms of bringing that technological revolution into the agricultural sector as well. And to bring together, I sometimes like to say, the nerds in the science area, together with the tech nerds, together with the policy nerds. So if you get those together and finding solutions that are driven from the national level, because these have to be coordinated and they have to be led from a national level. So you have to basically also tell donors that we have funding from this already. This is something else that we need funding for. So this needs to be a two-way dialogue between us. And this is, from our perspective, why we find that it's interesting to support a solution where you have a science research institution like CIFOR eCRAF, part of the larger CGIAR network. You have a big basis for the work that you're doing, together with a tech solution that BARDA and Soil Hive are bringing forward in a public-private partnership, and also teaming up with the national level. We're also working with Auda NEPAD on the implementation of the big ambitions that are coming through this summit. And I think that bringing all of these different networks together, finding solutions that can be reused and that are interoperable, in the sense of actually seeing that what I develop can be used by someone else. So it's a global good, hopefully, that can be shared around. So I think that's, we are also in dialogue with other donors on what are different donors supporting, and also trying to find that common ground on what open data would mean in what we are supporting as well. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ingvild, because what I heard from you is that every single one of us has a responsibility to change behavior. So donors, if they demand that data is open and collected systematically, that will also influence the projects. And as a scientist, I also have a responsibility. So I think it's nice that we're sharing that responsibility to improve the data infrastructure. So thank you so much for that, and for explaining interoperability to everyone. So I'm so happy to invite our next panelist from Ethiopia, Wulitawu Abera Amaseganalo, for joining us. We are both working in a project here. It's called Excellence in Agronomy. And I would love to give you 4 minutes to talk about tools being developed in this project that are related, and how Excellence in Agronomy, EIA, is contributing to build systematic agronomic data, and if you have any insights of what these data are telling us. Over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to discuss the CGIAR, the flagship initiative on agronomy. We are like a partnership of 10 centers, across the continent, and we are a partner to produce locally relevant agronomic solutions at scale. So that means it has to be contextualized at the local scale, but also that has to be done at large or across the continent in general. So at EIA, the basic thing is that we wanted to establish a partnership across the data, the analytics, and the agro-advisory value chains. So basically, we wanted to work with the governments, with a demand partner in different countries. For example, it could be a private sector, it could be the governments. If they wanted to, get improved soil advisory or improved agronomic advisory, that means we have to start from the data ecosystem and use the existing data sets and we want to understand the demand in terms of the solutions, then we need to convert that process or go from the data to the solutions. So in that case, as a huge network of international research scientists across the continent, we support the data ecosystem in terms of standardizing data across the continent. For example, if there is a best practice here in Kenya or Ethiopia in terms of how the data has to be collected, in terms of the units, in terms of the methods, in terms of the approaches, then that can be scaled out to different countries so that all this data can be interoperable at the continental scale. So the effort EIA is doing in terms of the verification of the data ecosystem across the continent would help to develop locally relevant but at scale agronomic solution in general. So that is a key component of that. And of course, as you said, Lee, the researchers have the responsibility to make their data open and available. So we are bringing all the data that is collected by the CG centers and also the national partners into a standard way, like what we call data pool, and then that can be used to start, the initial advisory at scale. Of course, then there is more data when there is existing data coming or becoming open, then that will help us to improve, to refine the content in that direction. And then we wanted to, go through all the processes. We wanted to use the data and then go to the tools, agro-advisory tools. So we develop AgWise, Next-Gen Fertilizer, Soil Health Recommendation tools in Ethiopia, in Kenya, in Malawi, in Ghana, in selected countries, and to show how this data can actually serve or generate locally relevant and at scale, at the continental scale. So that's what we are doing here, but the objective is not just to optimize for yield, but for different indicator of soil health. So it's not just optimizing for yield, but to understand the soil fertility status in the long term. So these are some of the things we are doing at the CGIAR, initiative for excellence in agronomy, and in general from the Partnership for Data, the solution, and also the use of high tech in terms of converting these data sets into a wisdom, as you mentioned before. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Let's give him a round of applause. And I'm really pleased that Manyeo Mutamba has offered to join the second panel. And I would like to hear from you. What have you heard from this session today that you can concretely bring back to the member states, all of which you highlighted this morning that have already signed on to the declaration, the Soil Health Action Plan, and give us some insights about, and also tell all of us what we should be doing better to support member states to make sure these data are accessible and useful. So please, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ali, to the panel for some really insightful ideas around how we can move from the need and the potential to really getting some of this happening on the ground and supporting the key stakeholders that we have to support as a continent. So a lot of very uplifting things that I had, and also just generally the interest, the stakeholder base that is really investing in this, to me is a game changer. For far too long we've really struggled to get meaningful partnerships with the kind of breadth of stakeholders that we see on this issue and others, particularly around soil health, which is really, uplifting and, to me, very, very promising. The private sector coming out in a huge way and putting their skin in the game, so to speak. And to me, I think there's a lot that we can do with this kind of goodwill and convergence of common purpose and interest to the extent that I start to believe that we can do a lot more than we've done in the past. And I've had really good things that we need to build on in terms of the tech capabilities that we can rely on now and really deploy to support our member states. The issue of cost, if we can really bring down the cost of data, access, trust, building, all those values that if you are to share, you really have to trust the partners that you're working with. Accessibility, you also want to be able to benefit from that. So from where we stand as the African Union Development Agency and the AU generally, we really want to be part of building that ecosystem that can be trusted, that can work together more, generally and contribute across the board. So we see that partnership being really, the centerpiece in terms of how we move forward. I want to go to the last one around the relevance and really making sure the data is meaningful to the people that actually need to use it. We build the capacity for it, but we also package it in a way that it can be accessible, but it can also make sense. It can also respond to the, to the challenges that they face. So I really see so much of what we can use now, working with member states and supporting, and I should say, the support and the willingness to come on board from our knowledge partner, whether it's, the African institutions, the international community, the CG, and others is really amazing. And lastly, also just to mention, to be honest, when I look at what's happening now, even from the donor community, I feel that many of them are also actively wanting to engage. They are not doing a hands-off kind of approach, say, oh yeah, we can give you the money, yeah, you can do what you think. I see active engagement, and I see them being particularly interested in ensuring that, we move together. And to me, those are some of the things that I really see that can really take to the next level on this agenda. Let me stop there. Thank you.
So thanks for bringing in a new word. Did anyone remember it? Trust. Yeah, I think we just started to scratch the surface. Trusting, and that's why it's really important we have national partners here co-developing these tools. And also the theme of let's not wait. There's urgency. And the last point about you're really seeing, and we are really seeing this momentum around soil health. I'm a soil scientist. I've been a soil scientist for 20 years, and every time I tell someone I'm a soil scientist, they have no idea what that is. But in the last 3 years, that's really shifted. Soil health is on the agenda. You can see the diversity of partners engaging in this, and we're bringing in all these different actors around private sector, innovation, technology, farmer organizations, local governments, AU. I think together we really can take on Ingveld's point of we all have this responsibility in our role that we play in this ecosystem to improve soil health locally, nationally, globally. So I would just like to thank this panel too, thank the audience, and I will ask the Anthony in the back to put up the barcode so people can share their questions and also their contacts if they want to engage. So let's give our panel a round of applause. And okay, so first of all, I did not even hear that round of applause. So we're going to give a bigger round of applause while they exit the stage and we officially close this session. Thank you so much.
So once again, on behalf of Yara International, we want to thank the audience, the panelists, and thank you all who have been organizing the event, the technicians, the Yara people. But not least, we would like to thank our amazing moderator. We have been so energized today through this session, and we look forward to engaging in all the partnerships that you have created together with us today. So thank you again, Leanne. And thank you, everybody, for attending.
Did you know that Earth has a pulse? That every 26 seconds, a beat runs through our planet. Like the heartbeats of living creatures. But the rhythm is fading. Species are disappearing. Farmland and natural habitats are drying up, burning, flooding, and vanishing. The soil feeding humanity is exhausted. What happens if the pulse suddenly stops? We must challenge the habits of how we grow and bring food to the table. Farmers, food companies, supermarkets, consumers and agricultural companies like us. Everybody must respond now. At Yara, we know we have a responsibility to lead this change. But we cannot do it alone. Together, we can find the courage to grow a nature-positive food future. Earth has a pulse. Let's keep the beat going.